But the hazel tree wasn't Russian after all. Russians were so loudly proud of their Oreshnik missile that they completely forgot to mention that there could be no Oreshnik without China's help. An investigation by the Telegraph revealed that China is supplying Russia with specialized machines, tools, and high-tech equipment used to create hypersonic missiles with nuclear warheads, specifically the Oreshnik missile. According to the investigation, the total value of the supplied technology and equipment is at least $10 billion. It's confirmed that without Chinese technology, the Russians couldn't have even built a prototype of the Oreshnik, much less a combat missile. And, the Russians love to shout everywhere that Ukraine doesn't create anything on its own, saying that all Ukrainian missiles are actually British or American designs. But it turned out their Oreshnik exists only because of the Chinese. But this also raises a very important question. Will the West respond to proof of such Chinese assistance to Russia in creating a missile that could already threaten Europeans? My name is Alexei Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like it, leave any comment under this episode, and subscribe to my Telegram. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, the Telegraph writes that China is supplying Russia with tools to create a hypersonic missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead, which Vladimir Putin uses to threaten the West. The publication reminds us that earlier this month, the Russian army launched an Oreshnik missile at the city of Lviv in western Ukraine, which, by the way, is located very close to the Polish border. The hypersonic ballistic missile, which has only been used in combat twice, can carry 6 warheads in flight, striking different targets. And now, as the Telegraph has learned, these warheads are being developed to be able to strike Europe in less than 20 minutes. Specialized machines and tools are being used, which the Russians never had and could never have had. Because Russians can't build these machines themselves, journalists started looking for evidence of the machines and technology. And it turned out that all these tools for creating the Nutcracker are part of a package of technologies and advanced equipment, for a total of $10.3 billion, which China sent to Russia to help Moscow create military equipment and expand weapons production. And next, I'll quote, Russia stated that the Oresh missile cannot be shot down, while Ukrainian officials and analysts warned that it poses a threat to the West. The increase in production volumes became possible in part thanks to a specific computer numerical control machine, a Chinese-made numerically controlled vertical lathe that processes and cuts metal. And as it turned out, this particular lathe was identified by Ukrainian military intelligence at the state Votkinsk plant in Russia. This is a leading Russian enterprise for missile production, which is under sanctions from the United Kingdom, the United States of America, the European Union, and Japan. And it is the Votkinsk company that produces the Oreshnik missile, as well as the Iskander-M ballistic missiles and the Topol-M intercontinental ballistic missiles. So, analysis shows that China has sent components worth billions of dollars to Moscow, which are necessary for assembling precision weapons and fighter jets. These are components that Russia either cannot produce on its own or cannot produce in the necessary quantities. All of them are on the list of the 50 most prioritized goods, the export of which to Moscow was banned by 39 countries, including the United Kingdom and the United States. However, as you know, China has never signed on to Western sanctions against Russia. Therefore, according to the American trade data aggregator Import Genius, China supplied Russians with microchips and memory boards worth almost $5 billion, which are used in precision weapons and fighter jets. Sukhoi. Other key goods include various types of ball bearings worth another $130 million, which withstand loads, reduce friction, and ensure movement, making them vital for building airplanes and other vehicles. China also sent piezoelectric crystals used in radars and electronic warfare systems worth at least $97 million, as well as telescopic sights, which can be mounted specifically on weapons, worth another $42 million. And I emphasize, this is what has been tracked so far. End of quote. As a result, it was imports from China that allowed Vladimir Putin to bypass Western sanctions and set up the production of more weapons, such as the Oreshnik, increase Russia's self-sufficiency, and protect its defense capability from global sanctions. The most vulnerable area for Russia is the production of high-precision machine tools. Russians cannot make them themselves. The best equipment is produced in Western countries, but China is capable of producing machine tools that are quite suitable for many of the tasks Russia faces today. It is absolutely clear that without access to the Chinese economy, the Chinese market, and China as a transit link for many of these goods and technologies, it would be very difficult for Russia to continue this war. And as reports have shown, in the first 3 years of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, China supplied Moscow with machine tools and equipment worth at least $3.1 billion. To reiterate, this is what's been tracked. This technology causes much more damage to Ukraine and the West than even hundreds or thousands of artillery shells sent by other Russian allies such as Iran or North Korea, because they are used up quickly and do not have a significant long-term impact. And now it's already clear that Chinese computer numerical control machines are being purchased in large quantities. They support defense production at a number of Russian defense enterprises, including in the Alabuga Special Economic Zone, where these Russian versions of the Iranian Shahed drones are produced. And let's not forget that one of the problems of the Russian defense industry is the speed of production. Many of their factories are very outdated. They don't produce airplanes or engines quickly or with good quality. And mostly this is what has remained since the times of the Soviet Union. That's exactly why imports are so important for the Kremlin. China is now responsible for supplying Russia's manufacturing sector. The investigation also showed that to ensure high-quality defense products in Russia, China also sends key measuring instruments, such as multimeters and oscilloscopes. They are used to check the efficiency and operability of weapons and microelectronics. Well, for example, they can guarantee the proper functioning of electronic warfare systems and radars, as well as ensure that microchips in drones will process, store, and transmit the collected data. Let me also quote the Telegraph from the newspaper's investigation. In 2025, it was established that Chinese companies directly supplied the Russian wartime drone industry with components and materials worth at least $55 million. From 2023 to 2024, this was the period when Moscow was just creating a large-scale logistical infrastructure for its domestic drone program. These monetary figures are considered to be greatly underestimated. Neither Beijing nor Moscow are inclined to report accurate trade and customs data. At the same time, an increasing number of shipments are being sent to third countries, which import and re-export goods to Russia, thus bypassing sanctions by concealing the procurement chain. Tracking the full scale of goods shipments between China and Russia is becoming increasingly difficult due to the use of shell company routes and logistics intermediaries by shippers to avoid detection. This was stated by Williams George, Director of Research at Import Genius, who provided all this data. And today, against the backdrop of this news that China is sending military goods to Russia through third countries, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev of Kazakhstan stated that a bank in Kazakhstan, as he put it, processed more than 7 trillion tenge from a neighboring country. And if you convert that to dollars, it's $14 billion, and it's obvious that this is Russia. And he stated that this operation needs to be shut down, because it turns out that Russians are using Kazakhstan in a very cunning way to launder money, transfer money there, bypass sanctions, run re-exports, and so on. And finally, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has paid attention to this. Let's see what comes of it next. Well, friends, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel. I would appreciate it. Use the links and details in the video description. That's all for now. Take care and goodbye.